All right. Good morning and welcome back to Gutted Good Grief, a Renge Rising production. We are your hosts, Becky and Sydney Rose, and we are deeply honored to welcome Tassin Joy to the community. This morning's conversation is going to explore grief through ritual, community, and coming back to ourselves. Tassin is a healer, a retreat leader, a coach, a space holder with a deep connection to the earth, to intuitive and natural healing practices through meditation, movement, ritual, and intentional guidance. And she supports people in reconnecting with themselves to help them move from overwhelm and disconnection toward authenticity, presence, and inner trust. I've personally been guided by Tacit. I can speak to the power in her presence, and I'm so thankful that she is joining us today. So, welcome, Tacit. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
We're so glad. We were chatting a little bit before this podcast about how important when grief is in life in general, right? We all, I think, see it as a true spiritual necessity, as not a bad thing, but as a growth tool, a sacred tool, a respect that we share with our loved ones by navigating our own bodies and our and others in our lives through their grief journey. And one of the things that was really important and kept coming up was the power in community, the
Mhm.
power in ritual, and also the power of returning to self so that we can be better members of community sometimes, or we can support others. Like all of those pieces are important. So, Tassin, I'd love to invite you to speak a little bit about that. How does ritual come up for you in your work? Um,
Mm.
e-
Ritual has become, um, like the air I breathe. It has become I would truly put it on one of my basic needs, the necessity for myself, and when ritual falls to the wayside like it so often does when big things happen or grief shows up, I will find myself in that sensation of, drowning and barely staying afloat and thinking, "What's going on? My tools aren't working." And it's like, "Oh, they're not working because you haven't picked them up today."
Mm.
Right? So, I don't know, I was thinking back when we had talked about the rituals earlier, I was thinking back when my dad passed away, I was 10, and I didn't have rituals,
Right.
right? I didn't witness rituals in my home. I didn't So I was thinking, what did that look like for a 10-year-old growing through grief who truly didn't understand what grief was or even understand that her dad was gone?
Mm.
Um, and this morning when I was climbing out of bed, had this memory. My mom made us these books after he passed away, and they she wrapped them in his shirts, and inside the pocket was the cassette tape of the
Mhm.
memorial service.
Wow.
And in there were pictures of him and us when we were young. He went
Mm.
and had a transplant that did not work out,
Mm.
and, all of the letters from the nurses and the doctors and everyone were in this beautiful book that she created. And as I was thinking this morning, I didn't know how to grieve. I didn't really witness it in my house, and, I would open this book when I would feel something in my body and I would sob,
Mm.
and the book became my ritual of relief. And
Mm.
that just dawned on me this morning. I was like, "Oh my gosh." Anytime I felt like I was blocked or uncomfortable from a young age, I could crawl up into my closet and pull this book out and sit with my
Mm.
dad and cry and cry and cry and be upset that I didn't get to grow up with him, be upset that I don't remember him, be upset that I didn't feel as nourished or held in those moments as my mom went through her own grief and my older sisters went through their own grief. And I think that was a ritual that I created, a portal to allow myself to have tears. And I just thought this morning, how cool is that, that your little body figured out a ritual for yourself?
Well, it's very nourishing is the word that always comes up speaking with you, Tassin, over the couple times that we've met. And the fact that you're able to bring that inner nourishment and to feel it and to see it and to hear it is so beautiful. The way all of your pieces engaged in a rhythm of ritual with your relationship.
Yeah.
with your father and with yourself. I think it also speaks to internal knowing. I was thinking as you were mentioning that about how important it is to have a guide to help you identify these ritualistic practices and find support in community and find a really supportive ritual process. And also how our bodies do sometimes know, even if we don't fully have the words. Our bodies often know what to do if that's either going inward for a second and finding, a cozy wrap and a
Mhm.
quiet space to go inward. If it's movement, if it's stomping our feet, if it's, whatever that is.
Mhm.
And I'm surprised sometimes at how intuitive, well, I guess I'm not surprised anymore, but blown away by how intuitive our youngest beings often are.
Mhm.
They know what to do. And I think we often can get in our heads a little bit and you're like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to do that." We talk it out. Tess and you do an amazing job about speaking about this in one of your courses that you lead, Awakening Awareness, about how we sort of coach out our intuitive, you know, move your body, scream, shake, whatever it is that you need to do. And we do that so intuitively when we're younger. And it's I don't know, I just love that you had that gift given to you and were able to start creating that ritual at such a young age so intuitive. I think it's beautiful.
You're Oh, is that drum that
Yeah.
you this was one of my first rituals that I created for myself when my sister was passing away.
Tell us about that.
Sure. So, yeah, I was gonna say the rituals that I have pulled in now as an adult, right? As I've come back to the realization that to me, a ritual is truly a routine, but done very consciously, with purpose, with intention. And my sister passed away. Time. I always say trauma has no time. How many years ago was it? January of 2024. Um, and in her passing, she was diagnosed with cancer in 2020 and then passed in 2024. So it was a long, long journey. And in her passing, I had a lot of anger. There was a lot of stuff going on. And so I noticed my normal rituals, watering my garden, going outside and having coffee with my garden, weeding my garden. I couldn't do it. They didn't fill me. They actually overwhelmed me. And I remember when my husband said to me one day that you've let the garden go, like in shock because that's my love language. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have. And he's like, that's when he started to worry, like, you're not okay. So wrong. And I couldn't go and do the garden. The cooking became overwhelming. My pottery, which is my other love language, became overwhelming. The things that I would ritualistically go do to clear my mind
Yeah.
didn't work anymore. And what I could do was go crawl under a lavender bush and count
Mm.
honeybees, sometimes for hours, because that was all my nervous system could handle. And then there were days where I would just feel so confused about what was happening and rageful and mad. And I had a dream of a drum.
Mm.
And I called a really good friend of mine that I know has many drums and does drum circles. And he was like, I have the perfect drum for you right now. It's a horsehide. And horsehide in Native American carries you through your grief. And so I went down there and picked it up and I began to wail on this drum. It wasn't rhythm. It wasn't easy, beautiful music. It was, I would rage on my drum and I would stomp and I would cry and I would gutturally scream. And it became honestly a daily ritual. And I could not breathe on some days if I didn't pick up that ritual and say, today you are going to allow rage to move through your body. Today you're going to allow that hard, hot sadness. Sadness isn't soft all the time. And I think we think sadness should be soft all the time. You know, it's tender. No. I would agree. I think
Thank you
yeah, go
for sharing that drum because I love how you use the hide of the drum, like you use the hide of the book and all it contained, a pour out ritual. And in your body language, your hands are straight up and down, alignment with the garden, alignment with the pottery, but your hands flew out,
you please.
open space for the bees, looking at them on the flowers. And as well, that nice rhythm that your body took, speaking about breathing and nice grief versus the discord, the beauty that your body took on when talking about just screaming at that drum
Mhm.
was so embodied and beautiful that these rituals moved you through every piece of your humanity.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and then to end that ritual, because I always think that, first of all, allowing your anger to move through your body is wild and not taught. It's actually shut down very, very young. It's too much. It's too loud. It's too messy. All the things. And so the first few times I allowed myself to stomp and scream and wail on that drum, and then I would move my fist to the bed and I would just punch my bed and fall to the floor sobbing because everything in me was scared of this emotion. It didn't feel right having why am I so angry at someone who's passing away? Why am I so angry? Why can't I hold this? Why can't I receive this? Why is everything that people are saying around me about me to me what wait my container was unable to hold it. Mhm. And it felt I always say we're breaking open. And so many people come to me and say I'm broken. And I'm like, I get that sensation of breaking open feels broken. But in that moment, I actually felt also broken because I couldn't hold the space that I normally held for everyone else.
Mhm.
And in my rage movement, when I would lay on the floor just sobbing and crying, and my sternum is where all of that sensation will come through for me personally in my body. It's my sternum. And in the end, what I want to add is I would rock her.
Mhm.
The ritual of putting my own hands on my own body and of touching me and holding me and whispering to her afterwards, good job. I'm proud of you for letting that out. I got you. We got this. It's okay. It's gonna be okay. We're gonna make it through. And I would just rock her after this gigantic, uncomfortable, loud. Have you guys ever just screamed and like your nervous system's like, whoa, just
Oh,
come out of me?
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, car scream. Yeah. So making that ritual in the end to rock yourself and tell yourself, I got you, to me is one of the most important parts. And that became a nighttime ritual. I would climb in bed and I would tell myself, good job.
Mhm.
For the day. You may have just laid under a lavender bush today, but you made it through
Well, don't
that.
as I think sometimes that's the strongest thing you can do. And yeah, I agree. I think it's also really beautiful to be able to come internally and know what it is that you need. I am a big fan of a scream and a loud grief. I will and have gone into my car and similarly to you banging on the drum or banging on the bed and just physically getting the grief out. For me, I'll connect with my body for a second and just say for all of the moments that you felt hushed, for all of the moments where your voice, it felt like it failed you, it didn't come out. I'm sorry, I see you. Let's get it out. And from my toes to my nose and out, I will scream as hard as I can while I'm driving. I'm sure it shakes the homes around me. And I'll scream until I have no more breath, until literally my toes are shaking, my knees are shaking, and it just releases this guttural cry.
Mhm.
And then what's so interesting is similarly to how you hold yourself, I sing to myself. I sing my chant of "Come home to your body,
Yeah.
come home to your own, come home to your body," and tears just naturally shed. And I've done this with other people in the car, and there's so much fear about letting that out. They're like, "I can't scream." It's exactly what you're saying. It's been like punished out of us. But when they do, I have yet to meet somebody who hasn't fully released a scream that doesn't end in a cleansing tear.
Mhm.
And then the nourishment that has to happen, it's like a maternal nourishment like you provided for yourself. And I think what's so beautiful about that is we're tending through ritual to ourselves in a community way, right? So you had mentioned that you couldn't give to yourself what you usually give to other people initially.
Mhm.
We give of ourselves constantly. Sydney and I talk about how roots exchange nourishment and nutrients underground, um, and trees can help each other reestablish balance through whatever deficiencies they're feeling through their root systems. And we do that as humans through energy, through words, through connection, through touch. And I love so much that you were literally able to find a way to do that to and for yourself.
Mhm.
It's not a skill that everybody holds. Well, I appreciate you sharing that today. It's beautiful.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much power in, um, knowing you've got yourself
Yes.
in a world where we are also it's necessary for connection,
Yes.
right? And I think one of the really interesting things that I realized I know like grief and I have walked this earth since I was born. Like I cannot even begin to share with you the amount of different losses that I have moved through and um but this last one is the rawest, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's still acute. It still takes me to my I like to call it my blackout grief where I don't even remember how I was or what was going on around me because I was so in my own energetic grief. Um and so it's interesting to think about the amounts of times this time where I've had to truly pull myself into my own space away from my community, and other times where all I've craved is to walk through it with community. And it's so different. I feel like each grief is so different. And tuning into what your body needs is is powerful and hard because so many people are like, I don't know what my body needs. I mean, and there's still times where I'm like, "Do I need that? Or do I need that? Do I need that?" The year she passed away, I cold plunged in the river one time each month. And it became ritualistic for me, but I didn't choose when I was gonna do it. There were days when my body said, "River, now, today." And it would be snowing out, and I would go down there, and I would undress, and I would light my fire, and I would cold plunge. And I would get out and warm by the fire and get dressed and go home. And this year, not one time had my body called me to the river. I mean, yes, I've sat by the river. The river always calls me, but not to get in. My body has craved hot baths and warm showers and in a completely different way. I think then my body was screaming, you need to just feel. And a cold plunge is one of the quickest ways to feel to get back into the body. Where now my body's like, I don't want to be cold. I want to be held. I want to be warm. And I'll get in that bath and I'll like almost rock myself until the water's rocking me like a baby. And that warm water will just hold me and rock me. And um, but that tuning in to what does your body actually need is such a powerful gift, and I really believe the way we hear that is by getting really quiet. And so if when we're in community, the bonus of community is being witnessed and being seen and being loved no matter what is coming out of you. The bonus of sitting alone and being really quiet is that you can quiet the noise, the outside noise, right? And you can actually begin to hear that internal dialogue of oh, what I need right now or what would feel good right now. And that I started to play with. Can I, my word of the year was pleasure the year my sister passed. And I was like, can there also be pleasure in grief? Right? Can I have moments where I feel good in this? Is that possible? And it was fascinating because my husband and I, who've been together since we were 15 years old, there were so many times where he would come in and see me. I had a grief corner. I literally made this room right here. I had a grief corner, and it was the fuzziest purple blanket, and it had my drum, and it had all of my daughter found me some sage that was truly meant for grief, Greek sage,
Mm,
and, I had my grief journal. I called it Through My Eyes because this experience is through my eyes. If you were to have or share her experience, it would be through her eyes, and they would be completely different stories.
Good.
Um, but in that grief corner, my husband knew if he came home and I was in that grief corner, I always said, "You get 2 options. 1, you can come lay down next to me, or 2, you can leave the fucking house.
mhm,
I don't wanna be witnessed unless you can be with me. I don't want
mhm.
you in the kitchen while I'm in here doing my thing, and I don't know what's gonna come out. And so unless you can come hold space and be with me, I need to know that the house is empty and clear." And so again, it's that part of if you can be in my community, join me. And if you don't have the energy to be in my community, or you're tired of watching me through this grief, because his biggest thing was, how long is too long to sit in the darkness? Don't you think you should? Don't you think you should? And not in a way of get over it, in a fear of, am I losing her to it?
Yeah. Where do I step in?
Yeah. And so it was like, if you can step in here and be a part of my grief, if you can be a part of my community, you're welcome. But if today you don't have it, go go back.
Your ritual
Yeah.
encompassed
Yeah.
your whole being. Sometimes your being was with your person, sometimes your being was with the drum, sometimes your being was with the water. And sometimes in grief, like in childbirth, there comes a point where you can no longer ignore what your body needs. And you're either having people supporting you or you're having people that you no longer see
Yeah.
in this process.
Yeah.
And it's that beautiful moment where, like you always say, Tassin, your body is yours. You are allowed to touch her. You are allowed to give her what she needs. If she needs to breathe, if she needs to be alone in ritual. And I love that your person was able to meet you there sometimes and be a part of that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was and his grief also. I mean, I think that's so fascinating. My sister was his sister since he was 15 years old. You know, he desperately loved her equally in different ways, and they were very close. And I think we look in our grief for recognition. We want to be witnessed. We also want someone that can get it. And I am here to say, in my opinion, I don't know that anybody is ever going to get our grief our way from our internal experience, from our relationship. And as I started to realize that, because there were times when my body would just be crying out for someone just to say, I totally understand exactly what you're going through.
Mhm.
But nobody had that relationship with her the way I did. Nobody went through the relationship, quote unquote, breakup like ours did before she passed and then refilled and got back together. And as much as he witnessed it, as much as he was there, he was in his own relationship with her and he was going through his own grief with her. And when I finally allowed acceptance in, he doesn't have to understand my grief and he doesn't have to understand the way I'm doing my grief. And I don't have to understand his grief, but I can honor it and I can hold space for it. And I can tell him that has to be so hard for you to be grieving her and watching your person melt to the floor. Your person that has held it up for 30 years melt to the floor. You know, it's hard to watch the people we love grieve.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's when we say the words that nobody grieving actually wants to hear. Like, it'll get better. It'll
Mhm.
go away.
Mhm.
Just be happy. They need you to be happy. They would want you to be happy. You know,
No.
I'm like, I want to write a grief etiquette book.
So
What to say and what not to say.
Yes. And I think what I'm hearing is worth holding here as well to say that um, the importance of healing internally going in is critically important.
Mhm.
It is absolutely a pillar that needs to be honored. And finding a safe and healing community is critically important, especially if you're a caretaker, because I I would say I do think some people really get it. I don't think that they have the right words, but energetically, I have connected with people who truly know loss.
Mhm.
And one of our core reminders here is always the bigger the loss, the fewer the words. For me, grief is just you're not going to heal it with words. Just be quiet. Like just sit with me, be present. And there is a sacred witnessing. And not every community can or should hold that space for you. And so I think, especially as a caretaker, when you are grieving, going internally is really important so that you can tend to your own grief. Because when you are meant to take care of other people, even hear you mentioning that for your partner about how hard is that for him, right? He's trying to take care of me and losing his own. Yes, grief is complicated,
Mhm.
and it deserves to still be held. And so I think that's where it's important to honor a few things: ritual, community, self. All three of those are still important. And also understanding that not every community is going to be a safe place for you to find healing, but that there are safe, healthy communities out there
Mhm.
that will get it. Um, and sometimes, unfortunately, that community has to be internally. It has to just be with yourself for a while until you can find those people that will be able to nurture you. But if you are naturally a caretaker, a people pleaser, a tender, I would strongly encourage you to get outside of that and find a different healing community. So how do we do that, right? That's a really big thing to say. Like, oh yeah, just get out of your space, go find healing. Um, there are a multitude of ways to do that. So, if it's finding a virtual community, we've talked about that. If it is finding a grief retreat so that you can physically remove yourself from the space where you are tending to everyone around you and can truly tend to yourself and be held and tend to others. We can find healing by healing others, right? That is also so helpful. But I just want to honor that it can be really, really lonely if we stay by ourselves in that. So while it's an important element, it's not everything. I was thinking about that this morning or last night a little bit about how um, finding and understanding our inner truth is the whole goal here. We want to come home to ourselves. And from day one, we are connected. So it takes two people to make you, right? And then it takes two people to grow you. You're growing in your mama. It takes a village to raise you. And then in your darkest moments, we often think we can do it alone, which is wild because when you think about all of these other emotions, if you have something huge to celebrate, you want to share it with community, right? And then, but with grief, we're wounded. We want to go tend to our wounds and we want to hold that. And I absolutely respect it. It's a critical, important element. And then I think we have to find a way to lean into our community to find that nurturing. Um, but it's hard. It's vulnerable. So I think one thing to bring in here would be how are some of the ways that you like I would be curious, how are some of the ways that you welcome community into your healing space, a safe community where you are not the caretaker, right? But
Mhm. It's interesting because, again, just the different dynamics of grief. When my husband has been sober for 16 years last weekend. So exciting, so powerful, sober, clean and sober.
yes.
And for me, the recovery group that I found when he was getting freshly, newly sober, so uh, walking into a space of other human and being able to speak your shame, which I think sometimes grief is so wrapped up in shame because
It
we
is.
think we should be further along. We think we shouldn't be so tied up in this. We think
Right.
whatever. And shame and grief just kind of hold this little cradle until we really start to accept that grief just is. And the shame of alcohol and drugs, right, can also mirror that grief and that grief of like, this is my life, the grief that my husband is a drug addict, the grief that I have 2 little kids in diapers right now. The grief of this is my life that I didn't sign up for. How did I find myself in this knot, in this mess? And so when I went into Al-Anon, or a recovery group, uh, and I spoke for the first time, I remember looking around that room and everyone was just gently nodding,
Mm.
like in empathy. There
Mhm.
was zero judgment. And then someone would share a similar story. And then someone would say their experience or their strength or their hope. And they had walked the story I had been in. And the healing, the immense amount of healing that I received from being in a group
Mhm.
setting where I could say some of the hardest, most hidden secrets within me out loud. And they were witnessed and accepted and not just like acknowledged, but I was still lovable. And that healing process was amazing. And so through that beautiful, beautiful program, I call them my 911 friends. And I have 2 911 friends, and one is my 911 friend who will get on my side of the street and yell and scream with me, and "You are right, and that person's terrible, and who we gonna have to go mess up tonight?" And
Mhm.
I have my other 911 friend who says, "That sounds really hard. What are you gonna do about it?" And they know each other very well, and we are a great little trio, and they know their roles for me. So one knows when I call, I just need somebody to pat me on the back and say, "Yes, you." And the other one knows that I'm calling because I need someone to help me guide myself back in and say, "Wow, that's really big and that's really hard. How are you going to move through it?" You
Mhm.
know? And so they were definitely through this grief, through this experience, through holding space through those 4 years, they were my community and they showed up for me,
Mhm.
and I could call them for any moment and they would hold that space and they would witness me. Um and I think we need those friends that we know are going to be on our bandwagon even if our bandwagon doesn't make sense. And we need that friend who's going to say, that sounds like a pattern.
Mhm.
That's interesting. Here it comes again. What are you gonna do about it today?
Mhm.
It's good the both of parties are necessary and needed, and so in for me, that truly became a community, um, that I would reach out to and reach into, and as a space holder, one of the things I have promised and vowed to myself is that I will always show up as authentically as I can in my
Mhm.
space holding, and so the groups that I was holding container while my sister passed, I
Mhm.
told them right away, "This is what I'm going through, and this is what I'm experiencing. And I am going to show up fully with every emotion each day. And when you check in, I will add my check in, and I will be present, and I will be here." And those group containers, I believe when you run group, you're running it for you.
Mhm.
If you're up on that pedestal, you shouldn't be running that group anymore. That's
Mhm.
my belief.
Mhm.
And so I like to hold container and bring in my life and my experiences in the moment of not teaching from the past, but teaching from the now. And so those containers also became places where I could and wild, every person in that room had lost someone that year.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
not shocking, kind of shocking. Universe has its way.
Mhm.
And so that 3-month course that year that I was holding space for truly became the same teachings that Rebecca took, but we're so focused on moving through our grief together and how can we use these tools and these moments and these practices for the now, for the sensations that we're in with our grief. And um yeah, I think it's so powerful to have that. And one of the things that I seek still today and would love both of your input on is finding those grief circles because again, so often grief is one of the most vulnerable sensations and feelings that we'll ever experience. And the idea of walking into a circle, like we always say, in my recovery group, you don't walk into that recovery group on a good day where you're just like, maybe this will work for me. You crawl in there because you're about to lose it. Your life is unmanageable. Things are falling apart. This is your last resort.
Really?
I've never ever met someone walk into those recovery rooms when life is going well for their first time.
No.
So with grief, because it can be such an isolating feeling and can feel like you're the only one, the idea of searching for a group in your area or getting brave enough to walk through there, like what would you say to the woman or the man or the human or the child or the whoever who is gutted by their grief
Mhm.
and is seeking a container, but is also paralyzed?
Mhm.
Your words, Tassin. Grief has no time. It may be years before we're surrounded by a tribe, but if you and me and Becca can find that one person that can hold us, that one person that can look in our eyes and see us, not fix us. And suddenly we're resonating with the nervous system that's more aligned, that feels our pain. And also, we feel their pleasure of stability. Suddenly, we're more comfortable around communities that vibe that way. So we might feel okay to breathe one day and go outside, and then we make friends with the bees and meet somebody walking by doing the same thing. I would say it doesn't have to be a lot all at
Mhm.
once. I would say to myself, be patient.
Mhm.
That one person is enough to hold hands through that grief journey
Mhm.
until the tribe, you hear their drums coming, and here they are.
Mhm.
You're holding one too.
I think it's important to remember that we all come from backgrounds that are quite different and not always safe.
Mhm.
And so many people can feel like community is not safe. It can come from an unsafe family background.
Mhm.
The people who are supposed to help them are the ones who have hurt them. And um, or whatever they've spent too much time inside their head. And the stories that we tell ourselves are really where trauma has a chance to bloom and grow and get bigger.
Mhm.
And so I think similarly to the importance of patience is being vulnerable enough to keep an open heart and an open mind and knowing that there are people out there who do get it. And so sometimes it comes across in different ways. Yes, we talk about virtual communities all the time because that is one of the fastest ways to find niche communities that might truly understand where you are. But it's also taking off your shoes and grounding in the grass and trusting that earth is going to guide you, that you are going to land where you need to land, that you are going to find your breath. And when you can come home to your body, it is amazing how things unlock. You might be in the park and just have a connection with somebody, a quick chat that unfolds into a gentle coffee, that unfolds into a quick story, that unfolds into a maybe a yoga class, and then you have a new connection, right? You will build your community. But that would be my reminder is open heart, open mind, and the people are out there, even if they weren't necessarily given to you from day one.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, but to also not give up on the importance and power of community. I think that to me is ritual and community, I think, and coming home to self, I'll be, are the number one things that you can do. We are not meant to be isolated beings. We are not meant to pretend like we have all of the answers. And we have to seek connection. I think it's a critical element to our being. So knowing that you're biologically wired for community, let that be your guiding confirmation that your community is out there.
Well, and I love what you both just said because I hear community and I think 10, 15, 20 people, right?
Mhm.
And what I just heard both of you say is the one. There
Mhm.
might be one person, there might be one connection that day. And
Mhm.
that reminds me, like, I think it was um maybe 3 months after my sister had passed. And I truly did go inward in my grief and just allowed myself to be in it and witness it and watch it and hold it and feel it. And there was this networking thing a few towns down of all went in, and I had been wanting to go, and it was like a $15 to sign up. So I'm like, whatever. If I go, I go. If I don't, I don't. It's only $15. And I remember my husband coming home that day, and I had gotten out of the shower, which was great, big step. And I was laying on the bed naked, and he comes and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, I was thinking of going to this networking thing, but I don't think I have the energy. I just feel so tired." And he literally was like, pulled me out of bed, got me dressed, got me something to eat, put me in my car, and basically pushed my car down the road and was like, "Go." And I was kind of like mad. Like, "What are you doing?" And I got there and I sat down in this huge room of women, and the person I sat next to, her mom had just passed away a month ago.
Mm,
And the person I was put into a group to, her mom had just passed away a month ago.
mm,
And then the person that I talked to afterwards, her sister had just passed away.
mm,
And I was like, I'm an intention center at one of my rituals. Before I got out of my car there, I said, I don't know why I'm here because my husband dressed me and pushed me out the door. But truly, I'm here. Maybe I'll make a connection for me, where I'm usually the networker that wants to make connections for others. You know? And that's something my grief has taught me is to receive, to be a receiver. And when I went in there and I said, maybe I'll meet connections that will help my heart today. And every single person that I made actual conversation with was deep in grief. And all of them had barely chose to come,
mm,
and we each just, and I didn't I think I met one of them for coffee later, but for the most part, it was just that moment of you're not alone in your grief. People are grieving
mm.
everywhere. Um, so yeah, I love when I hear community, to me, that is a tribe of people.
Yeah.
And so that was very clarifying for me to say, no, community is D1 or T people
Mhm.
that are there for you no matter what.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. They bring the community of your own heartbeat back, your memories, your past, your present, your future sometimes. And I love that your sister was so important to you. He was the one in your life. And when she is in a new sphere of relationship with you, you still value the one in her. You value the one in yourself. You value the one in your community when you're not looking for a networking event, you're looking for air, and suddenly you see those women one by one. And I feel that is a deep, deep skill set that you hold is the ability to value people one by one and build those relationships around yourself. It's very, very inspiring to me.
Mm.
And I love that you're sharing it with the grief community here today. The
Yeah.
value and power of one by one.
I also like to honor um that, yes, honoring people one by one. And something I always come back to is the reality that we are all connected. There's no being here that is an island. There's no being here that when they're wounded, we're not also wounded. There is no being that inflicts harm on somebody that we don't also feel that harm. We talk about our connection to earth as well, right? The waters, the wind, all of that. And so I want to invite that reminder that community can be one person, and community can be earth, and community can be anyone you interact with. You are a global, connected community. And that when we are willing to reach out to each other, there can be shared healing because when we're all connected, so when we heal ourselves, we heal others. And when we are given the opportunity to stay open, it's just amazing what will flow to and through you. So don't be afraid to find community outside of the person that you know immediately in your family or a friend or a networking group. It truly can just be somebody you never met before. You're walking on the street and you become the best of friends
Mm,
because grief and joy, all of these are universally shared emotions. We all fully, gutturally understand them.
And
Um,
it's fascinating how so often your community, when you move through something like grief,
Uh-huh.
isn't your community for grief. And I have seen that over and over again in myself, but also in some of the clients I hold space for, where they're just like, what is happening? This person that I I feel like I can't even be in the same space as them right now. They just aren't available or don't get it or
Mhm.
are too much or whatever that looks like. And I think we also have to honor that parts of ourselves that our community will shift and grow and change, yes, in life in general. But when grief is around, that
Mhm.
community, the patience we have for our community change dramatically.
mhm,
And we also will start to grieve the relationships that aren't what we thought they were in this immense amount of grief. Or sometimes to me, grief is like that clarity of what's actually important in my life.
Mm.
The things that aren't important in my life are like, I don't have energy for that today. I don't have energy for that anymore, period. I don't think. And
Mhm.
so community just shifts and ebbs and flows naturally in life, but through grief, it does exponentially.
yes,
No.
I agree. It's an incredible beacon of knowing, trust, learning, and shifting.
Mm.
It's this fluid experience, and you're spot on. I would say that often the most healing communities for grief are not your root communities because everybody's already been assigned a role. You mentioned that with your friends. They know their role in your life and you know your role in their life and we sort of naturally just shift into these patterns.
This
And I think grief does not follow a pattern. She's a wily little coyote who does what she is going to do. And sometimes we have to find healing outside of these known patterns. So, yeah, I think you're spot on. It's beautiful.
Well, and I did that a lot with my family too, was my memory, my recollection. The mom, if you're listening to this, just FYI, this is my internal story.
Do you call your journal? My
My perspective from my 10-year-old self was when my dad passed away, I became a caretaker of the house and held a lot of space for each of my sisters and my mom. And didn't understand grief, but wanted the happiness back. And so I would do the things to make them laugh. I would do the things to make it easier. I would do the things to make it so the house was smooth and
Yes.
and and good again, fun again, enjoyable again. And one of the things that became really clear to me through the loss of my sister was that I could not hold that space for my family again. And I literally remember having to speak that verbally out loud and saying to them, I love you and I know you're grieving and I can't be the person you call today. I don't have the capacity to hold that.
Yeah.
And I even remember uh the depth of my blackout grief telling my own children who were, oh man, what were they? 20 and 22 maybe, that
Mm.
I couldn't hold their grief for them.
Mhm.
And that was really painful, and I still look back and think, "Could have I done that differently? Should I have done that differently?" But in the intensity of what was going on inside of my body, I couldn't hold anything for anyone. And having to verbally be the person in your community where you normally do that,
Mhm.
and actually having to verbalize, "I don't have the capacity right now, and I am so sorry." And I have circled back now with both of my kids, and I have held them and loved them and told them, I know you needed me,
Mm.
and I wasn't available, and I am now. If it comes up now, I would love to be that person for you again, and I can't imagine what that sensation was like to have your own mom, while you lost one of your favorite people, tell you she wasn't available. But I didn't have it. And that, like, chokes me up, like and I think I wish we could honor that parts of ourselves instead of
Mhm.
push through. I think I would have been mean. I think I would have been snappy. I think I would have been hurtful. I
Yes.
think that what they would have received would have been worse than that really uncomfortable conversation of I'm not available to hold anyone's grief. And I
Mm.
mean, I took this to the point of having to go away for a whole week by myself because it just felt like too much to be witnessed in what I couldn't even witness myself. And the need to support others was so loud in my body.
Yeah.
And I remember just getting to a point one day where the whole body, I wanted the word is numb, but it was radiating heat and vibration and it couldn't release.
Mhm.
The grief drumming wasn't releasing it. The cold plunges were no longer releasing it. The journaling out everything wasn't releasing it. And the need to get better fast was overriding the ability to stay in my body.
Funny.
And I just remember one day typing out on Facebook and saying, I need a place to stay for a week by myself,
Mm.
dog friendly. So I'm bringing my Rottweiler with me. Um, and I had like 5 or 6 responses where they're like, come,
Yeah.
come. And I found a place on a river in the woods. And I told my husband, I'm turning my phone off.
Mm.
If I need something, I will call you. Um, I told my kids, if you need something, call dad. I brought specific food so I couldn't dive into satisfying myself through sugar and snacks. I brought 3
Mm.
meals a day that were healthy. I brought 0 wine. I brought 1 cup of coffee and lots of tea. I brought my sound bowls. I brought my drum. I brought my journal.
Mm.
I brought Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed. And I brought my dog and I left for a week. And it took me 3 days of what the heck are you doing? This is ridiculous. What were you thinking? This isn't helpful. It took me 3 days for the grief to start boiling out.
Mm.
It took me 3 days of being like, I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed at 4. I'm wide awake. I'm gonna get up at 2. I'm sitting by the river and it's too loud. The river was too loud. It was too much. My nervous system couldn't handle the sound of a river. I'd have to go back
Mhm.
inside and shut the door. It was wild. And on that 3rd day, I finally started to cry and sob and literally pulled my 3-year-old out and let her go sit on the floor,
Okay.
rolling around and slamming things and crying and then journaling all of it out and then nourishing my body to something clean and healthy and then being mad that I didn't have any chocolate or wine in the house and then putting myself to bed
Mm.
and then waking up at 2 a.m. and thinking, why can't you sleep? What's wrong with
Yeah.
you? And getting up and just sitting there watching the moon and drumming and drumming and drumming and breathing and feeling and then allowing a memory from a childhood moment that was sweet and divine to surface. And then feeling for the first time the grief that was euphoric and sad and beautiful and
Mm.
a good memory
Good. Good.
instead of the hard memory, instead of a confusing memory, instead of a painful memory. And slowly through that rest of that week, the rest of those 4 days, I just allowed my body, if it wanted to walk, we walked. If it wanted to cry, it cried. If it wanted to sit outside, and slowly I was like, the river would call me back out and I could sit by the river again. And it was one of the most beautiful gifts that I was able to give myself was to shut all the noise out. And the amount of times I picked up my phone that was turned off. I mean, if you could have had a video of me, that's why I always think I wish I had put a video camera in the corner because I don't care what your tool set is. When big grief shows up, we are all human.
Indeed.
We are all the same. We all fall to the floor if we
Mhm.
let ourselves. We all need that emotion to move through our bodies if we can find the space and the time, the right people, yourself. It's super powerful. And as I watched like different moments of anxiety roll through, I would realize it was just trapped grief that I hadn't allowed to surface yet. And
mm,
so anxiety became my reminder of there's more. There's just a little more in there.
mm,
And it felt like such a gift to allow myself to go away and to not have anyone watching the chaos that was coming out of me. I needed that to be sacred and mine.
That's so beautiful. I love that you had that. I love that you were able to witness yourself in that way and nourish yourself in that way and let your body be your body, not worry about agendas or clocks or where you need to be or who you need to take care of, but to truly allow yourself to feel. And I also love that you highlighted how it took 3 days before you were able to access that. It takes time. And that's somebody who's already really dialed into ritual and self-connection and awareness and has an openness and a connection to earth. So I love that. And I think if we could all give ourselves that even annually, regardless of whether or not we're experiencing a huge loss, I think be we'd all breathe a little lighter.
Mhm.
And
Same.
I love that you had that. It's beautiful.
mm,
It's so beautiful. And Tassin, you've gifted us with so much of your trust. Thank you for trusting yourself in your journey and sharing that trust with us here today to lean into ourselves and what our bodies need and what our minds need as we go through our grief journeys. I would love to gift you my favorite poem and then hear the last words you would leave with us today. It's The Beads of Life by Nancy Wood, and it's 4 stanzas. Are you both feeling okay with reading a poem here?
Listen.
The Beads of Life. The space between events is where most of life is lived. Those half remembered moments of joy or sadness, fear or
Mm.
disappointment are merely beads of life strung
So
together to make one expanding necklace of experience.
mm,
The space between events is where we grow old.
mm,
From sunrise to sunset, one day lives as another day emerges from the fluid womb of dawn, the first bead strung upon the everlasting thread of life. The space between events is where knowledge marries beauty. In quiet reflection, we remember only the colored outline of events, the black and white of war, the rosiness that surrounded our first love. The space between events is why we go on living. The laughter of a child or the sigh of wind in a canyon becomes the music we hear expanding in our hearts each time we gather one more beat of life.
mm.
so
Okay,
beautiful.
Sydney, tell me a little bit about what that poem means to you. I love that. I want to hear why it's your favorite poem
Mm,
because I bet it landed with
mm,
3 of us
mm,
in
mm,
profoundly different and beautiful ways.
mm,
And I want to hear
mm.
your thoughts on that if you're open to share.
Yeah. The image that comes to mind is of an elk jumping through water in a lake. And so I experienced that on the reservation I can't go on anymore. This poem captures that moment of the most beauty I've ever held in my life that lives on forever and ever for me. And as we've all had a different relationship with deer or elk, that relationship lives differently in each of us. But that one moment is a bead of life.
Wow.
Mm.
Mm.
Thank
That is
you.
beautiful.
Mm.
So beautiful. Oh, I was trying to think of one thing that I would say to end that, and feelings. Like that's a whole nother topic, but I would love to honor people in their feelings and let them know that just because we have a big feeling coming through doesn't mean we need to have a reason.
Mhm.
And sometimes just holding space for the feelings that are in the sensations, even if we drop the word feeling and we just look at sensations happening and we
Mm,
just watch them move inside of ourselves, that's all they're asking for.
mm,
We don't need a story. We don't need a reason. We don't need an attachment. And I realized that a couple weeks ago when I was feeling sadness and I instantly want to attach it to the grief because then it would make sense to me.
mhm,
And I had to pull that feeling back and say, maybe I'm just feeling sadness today.
mhm,
Maybe
mhm,
it's not attached to anything. It's just a sensation in my body. And I'm just going to hold it. And then it shifts and goes away. And so I just want people to know that in our grief, there's a lot of sensations that move through our bodies. And they don't have to make sense.
agreed.
Most of them probably won't make sense. But it's just honoring them and holding that little space for them that will
Mhm,
begin the healing of them.
mm,
Thank you, Tassin. You're incredible. I invite anybody listening today, if what they heard resonated, um, as deeply with them did with me, to learn more about Tassin's work at tassinjoy.com. Tassin leads both virtual and in-person offerings. And until next time, we send you wishes for connection, healing, health, and hope. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste.
Good grief. Good grief, 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 grief. Good grief.